As someone who's constantly on the go, whether it's giving talks, traveling, or chasing grandkids, comfortable shoes are a must. That's why I'm loving my Born shoes this fall. Right now, I've been wearing the Siggy leather platform loafers. They're stylish enough for dinner out, but comfy enough for long days on my feet. Born uses top quality leather and real craftsmanship. You can feel it the moment you step into a pair. What makes them different is how supportive and lightweight they are. You're not trading style for comfort, you're getting both. Whether I'm traveling or heading to the farmer's market, I can count on these to get me through the day. Take comfort in Born shoes because looking good should mean sore feet. Go to bornshoes.com today for 15% off plus free ground shipping on all full-price shoes when you use my code Dr. Meg. That's code Dr. Meg at bornshoes.com. As a mother and a grandmother, I've cooked more meals than I can count. But let me tell you, I've never had anything as easy and personalized as Hungry Root. They made grocery shopping and meal planning practically effortless. Last week, they sent me ingredients for their zesty lemon salmon bowl, and I had a beautiful, healthy dinner on the table in under 15 minutes with no guesswork. It fits my nutrition goals, saves me time, and gives me peace of mind, knowing my kitchen is stocked with clean, high-quality ingredients. Take advantage of this special offer, 40% off your first box, plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg.
On today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
We live in a noisy, anxious world, and often the battle for peace is fought not around us, but inside our own minds. Well, today, best-selling author and beloved pastor Max Lucado joins us to talk about his newest book, Tame Your Thoughts. Max, welcome to Parenting Great Kids.
Meg, it's so great to see you. Thank you for letting me. I've been looking forward to this, looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I tell you, I love all your books. Love it. This is a little different for you, I think, from my standpoint, having read most of what you've written. In talking about our minds and what we need to do with our minds and the whole idea that the battleground of the mind, you have 3 tools in your book. Practice picky thinking, identifying UFOs, uproot, and replant. Let's talk about picky thinking. You talk about being selective about which thoughts are worth keeping. How do we go about doing that?
And that's kind of a new idea for many people. Many people think just because a thought comes their way, they need to receive it. Mm-hmm. Many thoughts do come our way. And I don't know how they count these and where these studies come from, Meg, but in the book, I talk about the fact that we have 70,000 thoughts a day, according to one source. That's a lot of thoughts.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. And so don't beat yourself up for the thoughts that come your way. But I do think we should take initiative for controlling the thoughts we allow to stay, the ones that we choose to ponder. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of practicing picky thinking or being a selective thinker means that you're going to position yourself at the entryway to your mind. And with the help of God, you're going to be saying to a lot of thoughts, hey, I'm not going to think about you. You don't have a place here. Mm-hmm. You need to leave. It's kind of like you're the burly barroom bouncer. You're standing at the doorway and practicing very picky thinking. The scripture that helps us on this is in 2 Corinthians 10. Take every thought captive. Make every thought captive. And it's pretty robust, pretty muscular Greek usage there. Those terms are, I found in other Greek literature to describe military tactics, like taking a POW or taking a prisoner. And so it's pretty aggressive. You determine, hey, today I'm just going to be very careful about what I think. And I think that's where we start.
That's a great idea because often we don't think about what we think. Thoughts just come in and we grab a hold of them. They go, oh, okay. And we can ruminate on certain things. And I think we're all used to sort of having these, you talk about these cyclical thinking, the thoughts that come in. And unfortunately, a lot of times we tend to believe some of the ugliest thoughts, and they come in and they kind of sit there. So how do we, if we have a thought that just kind of sits there? I love that illustration with the military. Go and grab it and get rid of it. Does that really work in our minds?
Yeah, I really think it does. Now, all of us struggle with this. And one of the things we can do is try to identify our unique negative thought pattern. For some people, it might be anger. Some people, it might be anxiety. For some people, it's a strong feeling of insecurity. Take notes on your thoughts. Carry a little pad or some type of note-taking device and say, man, it dawned on me that I spend a lot of time beating myself up or being unkind to myself or assuming that the worst is going to happen. So to be an observer of your own thought pattern. Mm-hmm. And when you begin to sense that it's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for, Meg? When a cloud cover comes in, it darkens the day.
Overshadows. Yeah.
Overshadows. Mm-hmm. We get it. We just can't quite move out of it. And that's because we've created a habit. Mm-hmm. Thoughts are just habits. They are it's just habits. The fact that I swing a golf club right-handed is a habit. The fact that I brush my teeth with my right hand, that's a habit. I could change it. It would take some work, but I could change it. And our thoughts are habitual patterns that have rooted themselves in the way we view it.
I think we have to, and a lot of this I end up talking to kids about, particularly teenagers with anxiety, because anxiety is just, grabbing onto or holding onto a fear. And it's over and over and over. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Yeah. But to really go after those, because those fears really change the way we feel in a very powerful way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Anxiety is the number one issue facing our society. I think there are some others, but nothing is sucking the joy out of people more than anxiety. And thank you for that clarification. The presence of anxiety is inevitable. I'm going to be anxious because of all the bad things happening in the world. Mm-hmm. But the prevalence of anxiety, that's optional. I don't have to live in a perpetual state of anxiety.
Yeah.
Somebody compared it to, anxiety is the house alarm that refuses to be shut off. And that worked for me because we have a house alarm and boy, it scares me in the middle of the night.
It terrifies you. Your reaction to an alarm is to shut it off, even though it's trying to tell you something. But you're right. That's a great visual. Well, that kind of leads us into, you talk about the UFOs, untruths, false narrative, and overreaction. And that's really anxiety. So how do we identify when a thought is not truthful? This is hard with kids too, because they'll say, oh, I'm fat. I'm not fat. No, you're not. Look at my chart. Oh, no. But it's an untruth. So how do we identify untruths and say, okay, I really can believe that it's not true. It's okay to believe it's not true.
Absolutely. And you talk about something that is beating up young people, and especially because of social media, where they're constantly being compared or they're comparing themselves with the, most recent, most popular influencer. And so these untruths are beginning to settle in their mind. As pastor, I take people to scripture and I say, here's your standard. Here's your truth. The truth is you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. That's God's message to you. And so when you begin feeling like you're not fearfully and wonderfully made, when you feel like you're an accident or a coincidence, you got to uproot that, because that untruth will lead to a false narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And a narrative is the way we see ourselves. It's what we say to ourselves. And that false narrative leads then to an overreaction. That overreaction could be self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
It could be overindulgence. It could be an outburst. But rather than try to help somebody just by dealing with the overreaction, we've got to go upstream and find the untruth that is being spoken into our lives that's leading to that false narrative and that overreaction.
You
Does
know,
that make sense?
oh, absolutely. And that's exactly what social media does to girls. It just feeds them and feeds them and feeds them images and messages about, that other girls are prettier, other girls are thinner, other girls get better grades, other. And then they begin to feel that they're not adequate, they're not capable, the untruth. And then the false narrative is my life is worse, my life is horrible, I don't have a good life. And then they overreact, and there's the depression. And so it makes perfect truth. It makes perfect sense. But that untruth, it feels to me, maybe it's my age, but the untruths or the lies that are coming at kids today are fast and furious and overwhelming. I don't remember growing up with a lot of bad things being said. I mean, around me, to me, whatever, but kids they're bombarded every day.
Why is that in your experience? What's going on? I agree with you. I don't think what I heard growing up is anything as nearly overwhelming as
No.
kids. What's the difference?
No. Well, I really think money drives it, and money in the form of social media, TikTok, and X, and all of these things that are trying to sell stuff to people. And I think, they set these platforms up, and it's sort of an entryway into a kid's life and their heart. And then they allow kids to chat back and forth. But what's very interesting is Instagram and others, they have an algorithm. So they can actually watch what you're interested in looking at and listening to, and they really amp it up. They'll exaggerate it so that you'll get that same theme over and over and over, but in more extreme ways. And so I think a lot of it is meant to really grab kids and suck them in, if you will. Then they can really, really pound them with lies. That's my best understanding. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. In the book, I tackled a topic that surprised a few people, and that's lust.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this problem of pornography,
Mm-hmm.
and how it is the social media or the internet is just the perfect weapon for the demon behind pornography. The untruth that pornography teaches is that a person of the opposite sex, usually a female for a guy looking at a female, the untruth is she's a commodity. She's not a real person. She exists to give me pleasure. Well, that's a lie. That's a blatant lie. But that lie then takes root, and that leads to a false narrative. And that is, females exist for my entertainment. And then that leads to an overreaction of a literal addiction of the brain to the dopamine surge that happens when a person views pornography. That overreaction could be acting out on your own spouse or acts of infidelity, all because of an untruth. And if you can go back and uproot that, the truth is that God created sex. Sexual desires are wonderful, are healthy, within the covenant within the confines of a covenant relationship. That's truth. Mm-hmm. So if you can extract that lie and replace it with truth, then you're going to be you're going to be preemptively dealing with that overreaction.
Yeah.
So in all of these issues, we have that common thread, whether it be anxiety, lust, greed, insecurity, they all begin with an untruth.
Yep.
And that's why the scriptures are so essential, because they give us the standard, the gold standard. Oh, it's
Well, and not only to identify, because I think anybody addicted to pornography, or well, I shouldn't say that, but any kind of addiction on some level knows they're addicted. And so facing the lie is the beginning of the uprooting. And maybe many people are afraid of the uprooting because it's going to be very painful. But that's really where God wants us to go. That's the healthy track that he wants us on, is to clean us up, if you will, clean our minds up, because you really can't be a healthy or happy or live in a lot of peace if you have all of these untruths just bubbling and circulating around in your mind, and they're just getting worse and worse and worse. So this is why this book, I think, is so terribly important. Let's talk about parents. Many parents live in that mental DEFCON 1. They feel overwhelmed and reactive and exhausted. So what do you think, what role does thought play in how we parent?
Yeah. Such a great question, Meg. I would apply the UFO directly to parenting, because many times parents feel this overreaction that would manifest itself in a form of catastrophizing, assuming the worst is going to happen, thinking that nothing good is going to ever happen with my kids. We tend to go there and stay there. So when you sense yourself in this spiral of fear that my kids are not going to turn out well, or I'm not being a good parent, then it's time for the parent to do what we hopefully teach our kids to do, and that is go back to the untruth. That's just not true. That's just not true. There's no reason for me to assume that my kids are not going to have healthy and wonderful lives. Just the opposite. In fact, the Bible teaches me that I can pray for my kids, that I can encourage my kids, that I can help my kids to grow. I can train them up in a good way. And that God is for me. He's for the family. The family is his idea. He created moms. He created it. So I could begin to fill my mind with these kind of thoughts. That then leads to a healthy narrative that says that no kid's going to be perfect and no parent is perfect, but God is still going to be with us. And the right reaction is, I think, a happier, healthier household.
Yeah.
Not easy to be a parent. You know that. I don't
know. And I thought I was out of the woods, and then you become a grandparent and you go, oops, here we go. It's just, I thought it would be a little bit easier, but emotionally it's really hard. Have you ever hit that wall where stress, anxiety, or even burnout just becomes too much, but finding a therapist feels impossible? I've talked to so many parents who've been there. You know, therapy could help, but the cost or finding someone who takes insurance makes it feel out of reach. That's why I want you to know about Rula. That's RULA. Rula is a healthcare company that's making therapy easier to get, more personalized, and actually affordable. They partner with over 100 insurance plans, so most patients pay around $15 per session. And they don't just assign you a random provider. Rula takes your needs, preferences, and goals and connects you with a licensed therapist that's the right fit for you. You can start therapy as soon as tomorrow, and Rula sticks with you every step of the way. Thousands are already using Rula to get affordable, high-quality therapy that's actually covered by insurance. Visit Rula.com/Dr. Meg to get started. When you sign up, make sure to say you heard about it here. That's RULA.com/Dr. Meg, because mental health care should work with your life, not against it. You know, a lot of times it seems weird, and we know that we shouldn't live in fear, and we know that perfect love drives out fear, that God drives fear out of us. But when you talk about catastrophizing and parents are so worried about I hear this all the time, all of the awful negative influences on our kids. And it almost feels safer, if you will, for them to believe that things aren't going to turn out well than, gee whiz, they will turn out well. Because I find myself constantly saying, and I believe this, I said, if you treat your kids the way you want them to be, they're much more likely to be that. So treat them as though things will go well and that they will have a strong faith, that they will, pay attention to what you're saying. Why is it harder? This is sort of off subject, but I just thought of it. Why is it harder for parents to settle in on believing that things will turn out well than accepting or believing things are going to turn out poorly? Do you think?
I wonder if it has something to do with the speed at which the world is changing. I'm still not quite sure I even understand what AI is, much less how it works. But just this morning, I read an article written by a father who's pretty much doomsdaying the future of kids because they're going to be raised. Nobody's going to have a job. Nobody's going to. He just went down the list of all the things AI is going to do to his kids, and he's demanding. And so he is assuming. He's assuming that something bad is going to happen. Now, maybe that is because we barely get our hands around social media, and now we're dealing with AI. We had barely, social media was preceded by just cell phones and mobility of communication. And then wasn't that long ago, I was trying to figure out how to work a fax machine. I can't even find one.
I know.
Maybe it's just the speed of change. I know there has always been change. I mean, I know we've gone from agricultural society to industrial society, but it seemed like those changes were much more gradual. Now we're just seeing it's like a hurricane, and we're on the outer edge of the band, and we keep getting whipped around by these winds.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. Be my best.
Well, because I do see so many parents who are afraid. But yet I remember, around the time I was getting married in the 80s, I heard friends say, I will never bring up kids in this world because it's so bad and it's so dangerous. And that's exactly what they say today. And my thought then was, well, that's an odd thing to say. The world has always been bad. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I know that kids do drills now for school shootings, and we were doing drills for bombing. There's always been something out there that's going to take us down. But I do think, God is with us and God is on our side. Speaking of which, you said that your wife once asked you, is God in this anywhere when you were having a hard time? What did that do to your perspective?
Well, you wives seem to always know the right thing to say and the right time to say it. She had just been listening to me disgorge all the problems and all the woes and all the deadlines and all the struggles. And rather than tell me everything was going to be okay, she said, now, Max, is God in this anywhere? Because what I had done is exclude God from the equation. And when we do that, it simply seems overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But when we can include God, continually acknowledge that there is a good God and he cares and loves us, then we've got a leg up on any problem.
And I think, honestly, if you don't have a faith in God, I don't know how you get through it, because what I try to do is visualize, my problems and my fist holding tightly to those problems and just not letting go and not letting go and not letting go. Because if you trust that you open your hand and give those problems to God, if you don't know who he is, it's hard to open your hand and say, here you go, because you've got to know that really relinquishing those thoughts and those worries and anxieties to God, he really means it when he says he'll take care of it. And that means that you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that's a hard transition to go from hanging on to it and worrying and worrying and worrying and worrying. And I think sometimes we feel if we worry enough, then we have power over it and nothing bad will happen. Where it's really bizarre thinking. Yeah, but I think that, to practice that exercise, which is you talked about in the beginning, is identifying it and then just sort of saying, okay, it's going to be uprooted and I'm going to actually pass it on to God. That's a big step. Can God really handle that? Does he really want to handle that? And is it okay for us to feel peace after we let something like the grief of a loved one who just died, to give it to God? Can we really feel peace? And is that okay when we release those worries?
And one of the challenges that we have with our kids is we feel like their outcome or their future totally depends on us and our parenting. And surrendering that worry to God is really essential that we do. But the answer to the question is yes, we truly can have a peace that surpasses all of our understanding. Being a pastor, it has its burdens, but it also has its blessings. And that is, I meet so many people who are living challenging circumstances, but doing so with such courage and faith. After last Sunday service, I met with a dear friend, a couple. I'm 70, they're in their late 60s. And he, if the doctors are correct, he doesn't have but maybe another couple of months of life. And yet his faith was, Meg, so robust, so joyful. And he wanted to, of all things, give me a Mont Blanc pen that he's had for 30 years. He was an insurance adjuster and kind of old school. He wrote everything out longhand, And he said, "You've been my pastor. I want you to have this pen. I want you to think of me." And it was just a beautiful moment. And it was a picture of somebody whose faith is allowing them to face a very uncertain future and do so not with a giddy denial, but really a deep-rooted confidence. It's not what he wanted, but he trusts God. And it was a beautiful moment. And so when you ask, can we really find that peace? I said, yes. Jesse did. Jesse does. And so does his wife, Betty. And so do millions of people. Who learn to trust.
Yes. And that is a beautiful, that's a beautiful picture and a reminder. And to see people live like that, I see a lot of parents whose kids are grown and they're going off to college, or maybe they're in their 20s. And the parents are beside themselves because a lot of parents raised their kids to have a strong faith, and some of their kids do. And then some of them just walk away and the kids go, "I'm not sure about all this stuff. I don't know if I believe this." And the parents are so worried. And I get it. And they pray and pray and pray, and they don't see any change in their kids. And I'm sure you see the same. What do you tell parents like that? Should they pray, or should they keep trying to talk to their kids? What do they do?
Yeah. I wonder what my dad would have said to that question, because I was really I was a jerk, high school and college. I was with a group. We would pretty well drink a 6-pack a night and each, and we were brawlers and fighters. And I was raised to know better. I was raised being taken to church, but I just didn't receive it. And I think a lot about how my father was able to, at least from my perspective, keep a firm balance. That he didn't approve of what I was doing, but he sure loved me as his son. And somehow that came through. I do talk to parents whose children are off the path or have turned away from their faith. And I find myself always reminding them that God wants them more than you do. And that where there are seeds sown in faith, there will always be a harvest. And that this is a chapter. It's not the whole story. And your role now, especially if they're adult children, is to pray Give advice when requested. Don't force it. Let there be grace, extend it, and trust that the God who loves them, loves you, loves him, and don't give up.
Well, and I mean, that's so wise, because I think that if an adult child feels that you're frenetic and trying to tell them and tell them and tell them and tell them why they should believe, A, they start to think you're a little nutty, but B, they get weary. But I think if you just sort of stay quiet and you pray, and your kids know what you think, what you believe, they just know all that. So you don't need to remind them. And I remind myself that, my kids already know this, so I don't need to keep saying it over and over. But boy, you want to, even in their 30s, you kind of want to just remind them. But I think that, and my husband's great at that. He's great at that. Just don't overspeak, Meg. The kids know what you think and what you feel. And some ways it has a bigger impact if you just stay quiet about it, I think, at times.
It's a dance, though, Meg. I know I've overspoken, and then there's times I should have spoken more. That old saying that the worst advice is unsolicited advice.
Exactly.
And when your kids my kids are all in their 30s. I have a daughter who's 40 now, and they're grown. I mean, they're on their own. And if they need my advice, they know how to, but there are many times I have to say, okay, they will learn.
Yep.
They need to go down that path on their own.
Yep.
But I do believe, I personally hold on to the great promise that if a person gives their heart to God, God will never let them have that heart back.
Mm-hmm.
That it's God's hold on us more than our hold on him.
I love that. Yeah.
I believe that those years that I was a prodigal son, I believe I was saved. I know that's a theological discussion, but I had given my life to Christ as a young man. I wasn't walking in faith, but I do believe I was still covered in God's grace. I don't think I was a good testimony. I think I was unhappy, and I believe he let me suffer to waken me up. But I do believe ultimately that all of us pass through times of waywardness, and that the God who holds us when we're good holds us when we're
He crabs. Yep. I love it. I love it. He's not, he doesn't have a yo-yo in his hand like, okay, out you go. Okay, I'll pull you back close again. I mean, sometimes we feel like that. We only have a few more minutes, and I need to know about your tattoo.
Okay. Hey, and it's a perfect setup for what we've been discussing. Feels like the whole conversation's been about me and my wayward years, even though the book was not about it. But it is 50 years since I came to faith. I'm 70 now. And on March the 12th, 1975, is when I trusted that God would forgive me. And so I realized that, Meg, early in this year when I turned 70, I thought, wow. That was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I decided to commemorate it with a tattoo. I put on the inside of my right arm the word tetelestai. Jesus on the cross, when he said, "It is finished," the Greek translation of that is tetelestai, or "it is paid." And I love being able to look at this tattoo every day and be reminded of what the grace that I trusted half a century.
That is, so what did your wife think when you went out and got a tattoo?
She went with me. She thought it was great.
And how about the girls?
Great.
How about the girls?
They couldn't believe it. They had heard me talk about this for quite a while. And they're pretty accustomed to their dad doing some wacky things.
Because I don't think of them the kind of girls that are going to want a tattoo.
I don't think they have tattoos.
No, I would be surprised. Oh gosh, this has been amazing. So just, as we sort of wind down here, I know that there are a lot of parents out there who are feeling stuck. They're just stuck. They're just afraid, and they're angry, and they're anxious, and they're just wondering if they're doing a decent job. I can't tell you how many fathers come up and say, well, I think I'm doing a good job, but, and I say, well, why do you just think you are? How do you know you're not? So talk to any of them in the end about a thought that they can put in their minds today that will begin to shift that mindset away from fear and away from being stuck in all of those frightening messages in their heads.
In the Gospels, every time Jesus was approached by a concerned parent, he stopped and helped, without exception. There was a little girl who died, the daughter of the synagogue ruler. There was a young man who died outside the village of Nain. There was a Canaanite mother who was concerned for her daughter. In each instance, Jesus stopped and he heard the concern of the parent. That to me says Jesus hears the prayers of concerned parents. He does. He, in the expression of the Father in the Trinity, is a parent. He knows what it's like to be a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, don't underestimate the power of a praying parent. Talk to Christ about your children and believe that the right outcome is within his power.
Yep. And he wants that right outcome so much more than we do. And we can't forget that. You know, we feel that we're the only one who can come and sort of, you know, make good come out of a bad situation, and that we want it more than anything. But that's not true. God wants it more, and God can get it done better than we do. So you look down and you think, why am I so silly? Well, because it's complicated and it's hard. But anyway, you know, I do a lot of work with fathers and daughters, and I'm all about, you know, encouraging dads to be, you know, who God created them to be. And you have daughters, you know, I have my father-daughter book. But from your perspective, what unique impact does a dad have on his daughter's identity? And how does a dad's faith shape her spiritual life?
Value is the word that comes to my mind. A father speaks value to his daughter. The daughters look to their father as the ultimate, I shouldn't say ultimate, but at least initial authority when it comes to their beauty, to their inward and outward beauty. And if they perceive that their father truly does cherish them, then I believe that will help them feel secure. And as they go into relationships with men, not craving the approval of men, but understanding that they already have received approval and value from their Heavenly Father. So we dads have the privilege of just being a presence in their lives, of articulating that love, and they find that love in our deeds as well as in our words. And it's a great privilege.
It is a privilege. And it's something that a father gives a daughter that's very, very different from what a mother can give a daughter. My guest has been the wonderful Max Lucado, and his latest book is Tame Your Thoughts. Tame Your Thoughts. It's fabulous. It makes sense. It's readable. You can apply it, and it really, really works. Max, thanks so much for joining me today on Parenting Great Kids.
My great privilege. Thank you, and have a great day.
Hey parents, I'm Dr. Meg Meeker, and if you're ready for real solutions to your parenting problems from a pediatrician, join my Parenting Great Kids community today.
There's a reason so many parents trust Dr. Meg Meeker. Now her courses, parenting forum, and trusted answers are all in one place, the PGK Insider Community. Join free at meekerparenting.com.